Dis-leur d'attendre encore un peu que là on est en train de setup, c'est presque prêt.
Est-ce que le recording il est lancé d'ailleurs là-bas?
Je l'ai lancé.
Ok, ça va. Ok. Ça marche?
Ouais.
Nickel. Bonsoir tout le monde. Alors, on termine les peaufinements pour le son et on est prêt dans quelques secondes, quelques minutes.
Il aura besoin de l'ordi.
Use. Alors, bonjour à tous pour cette deuxième partie, cette session numéro 2 sur 4. À nouveau, merci à 42 Blockchain de nous recevoir pour ce travail. Merci aussi à Wilfried pour le setup audio, vidéo, setup. Sans plus tarder, on va être très rapide. Là, je vais vous dire un peu l'agenda. Par contre, je vais switcher en anglais, autant pour moi. So yeah, I'm going to switch to English. So basically, the agenda is going to be very simple. We're going to have one talk from a young, successful founder who is going to share his experience real fast, 5 to 10 minutes. Then we're going to have the follow-up of the bootcamp from Robert, and then we're going to have at around 6:10, around that time, another talk from somebody from OnlyDust, who is the platform where you can get paid contributing to open source projects, still being a student. So that's going to be pretty fun. And afterwards, it's going to be, again, Robert to be talking. So 2 talks of like long, 5-10 minutes long, and then the bootcamp all the way. No transition, so let's get started. We're going to have Ben, who is going to join now. He's on his way. He's gonna join with a Google Meet link. So we're waiting for him to join. Lucas, il a pas. Thanks, Ben. Now it's your turn.
Hello. On m'entend?
Yes. It's in English, please.
Ok, très bien. Quelles sont les prochaines étapes?
You can get started. I'm not even sure you hear me, but you can get started.
Ah ouais, ok. Moi j'ai pas de vision. Du coup là Ok. Bon, pas de problème. Ok. Ouais, vas-y, je prends. Parce que là, en fait, j'ai pas de contexte sur où je suis là, donc je pense qu'apparemment il y a des gens qui m'entendent. Donc bonjour à vous. Je parle en français, je suppose. Donc bonjour à vous. Je m'appelle Ben. Je suis développeur et entrepreneur sur Starknet depuis maintenant presque 2 ans, mais on va dire. Pardon? En anglais, ok. So I'm Ben. I'm a developer on Starknet for I would say at least 1.5 years, between 2 years and 1.5 years. So 1.5 years professionally and 2 years overall in the ecosystem. I built my main project is Starknet.id, that is known for being the naming service, identity service of Starknet. The main thing that is known for is distributing and selling .star domains. That is kind of similar to ENS in a way, to Ethereum naming service. And it's been 2 years that I'm building on Starknet for Starknet ID, but for other initiatives like as you guys are dev, if you looked a bit at Cairo, the language of Starknet, I started the Cairo book. That is an initiative that is a documentation for the Cairo language, and a bunch of stuff in the ecosystem. And today I'm here to talk with you guys and to try to explain why I think it's a very good opportunity to start building on Starknet today, and why I'm still here after 2 years in this ecosystem, and why I think it's still an opportunity for me, but more than for me, for you guys. So I will start sharing my screen. I guess you guys are seeing it. Oh, and I'll go back to my slides. So, why building on Starknet makes sense today? Why is it an opportunity career-wise and overall? So, who am I? As I said, I will skip this part, but I'm Ben, co-founder of Starknet ID. I'm French, as most of you are. I made an engineering school. I'm a developer, as most of you are, and I've built Starknet ID and other games and projects in the ecosystem. And it's been 2 years that I'm 100% focused on Starknet, the tech stack of Starknet, and building companies and products in the Starknet ecosystem. Who was I 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago? I was simply a developer at the end of his studies that wanted to go all in an entrepreneurial project, and I was a bit searching what to do. And when you search what to do and you're a bit in Web3, what to do in general is hackathons, because you have a lot of hackathons around Europe where you can create projects, be rewarded, be paid by some of the projects to work on them. And that's a pretty cool experience. You meet people, you meet interesting people, you learn about new tech, you create projects. And you sometimes, if you're good, you win the hackathons and you're getting paid for that, which was what I did with three Starknet hackathons in the summer of 2022. And I was just here, a bit behind everybody. And I wasn't the only one that started and was onboarded in Starknet at this moment. You can see here another friend of mine that also co-founded the Cairo book with me. And here, the founder of Focus Tree, which is an habit productive app on Starknet right now that is doing really well, raised a 3 million seed, and is profitable. So a lot of people that are actually succeeding right now on Starknet were onboarded on these hackathons, on these meetups, on these hacker houses. So just to give you the perspective that these moments can matter in your career and in entrepreneurship or whatever you want to do as a developer. This moment, including this meetup, of course. So just to give you some kind of perspective of how things are advancing on Starknet. So 1 year ago, we had a tech that was really, really different from what we see right now. First, we have a very, very low TPS on mainnet right now. Not right now, sorry, 1 year ago. So we had 0.03 TPS, around zero, between 0 and 2 TPS, basically, which was very, very difficult to manage when it comes to using the mainnet, because we had a lot of people using it for plenty of reasons, and transaction took like 25 minutes to go. When now, when you are using Starknet, if you guys use Starknet, everything works smoothly, transactions are cheap, and everything works well. In Cairo, the language of Starknet, 1 year ago, we didn't have any loops. Now, Cairo feels like Rust. Cairo feels like a normal programming language. Starscan didn't really exist. 1 year ago it existed, but like 1.5 years ago it didn't exist. We had another exploring system. We had we had almost nothing on the ecosystem. So this is just to give you perspective, and bridge was limited to $50. You couldn't bridge $50 on the chain. You had only 1 million or 500K on the chain, when now we have 350 million on Starknet in terms of TVL without including the token. So just to give you the perspective that Starknet and Web3 overall, of course, feels 1 year in Starknet and 1 year in Retrieval feels like a decade, and it can really boost uh, like your career as a dev, as an entrepreneur. It goes really fast, and all the people that I talked about before, the people that started 1 year ago, 2 years ago in this ecosystem, so their career really boosted a lot comparing to going normal path. I guess as developers from 42, you're used to not going to the normal path, but I'm giving you more perspective on what it is to like the change that we can see in 1 year in a crypto ecosystem, and especially on Starknet. So in 1 year, this was the first version of my app, Starknet.id. Here is what it looks like right now. So completely different. We remade everything, the front end, the back end, the contracts. We remade everything. We changed everything. 200K clients after. It looks like this. And I met a lot of people along the way, had a lot of fun, and that was really cool. What I'm saying, why am I saying all of that? Just to give you the perspective that um, for me, like being fully focused on Starknet helped me a lot in terms of my career, just because I passed from students to CEO or entrepreneur, uh, say what you want, that manage a team of 7 or 8 people, and how now have some kind of responsibilities and see a lot of stuff, which is not the case of all the people in my age in general. And this is all thanks to Starknet and the opportunity that Starknet gave me. Same for Web3, but I think Starknet is on top of that bigger than Web3, because we have a completely different stack. Everything has to be remade, everything has to be rebuilt. And there is plenty of opportunities on that matter, because if you go to another ecosystem like Ethereum and everything around EVM, you have people building an EVM for the like 7, 8 years. And this, on Starknet, you have people for 1 year, 2 years, and you have still plenty of room to go. Some other ecosystem stories. So there's me building Starknet ID. There is my friend Mathieu that was building infrastructure in a service company, and then joined another company of the ecosystem as an early employee. Another of 2022 that now has one of the big apps of the ecosystem, a focus app, or building a habit building app, and is working really well, profitable, etc. And in 2023, we had other example that this guy, for example, Ponori, he entered into the Starknet ecosystem. It led his experience in the ecosystem led him to the Ethereum Foundation, and now led him to Polygon. And we have another example. This one is especially for you guys. His name is Charles. He's from 42. Made the project on Starknet. Finished by giving up on his project for several reasons. But the worst thing that happened to him is that he got hired by Starkware and got himself a very good situation. So my point here is that on most of the people that joined in the ecosystem, started building, started developing, and start to create a project. The worst thing that can happen is that your project doesn't work and you get hired for a job that is that gives you a very good situation, both in terms of freedom and financially. So that's to me what the worst thing that could happen for joining the Starknet system and sticking to it. So a bit again of another ecosystem story. This is Gavin. He started a habit building app. This habit building app was not convincing enough for a lot of VCs and for a lot of people at the time, but he decided to keep building and to keep focusing on Starknet specifically and on the vision around that campus attraction, Cairo, etc. And everything is now working for him, and everything is really going really well for him. And he took that personally, worked during 1 year in the dark, and now everything is exploding for him. So I'm pretty happy on that. And this is one of the good ecosystem story that we have on the ecosystem, even though it's early the build, it's only the beginning. Yep, yep. Only the beginning. So to close on that matter, on that subject, here are some other examples, but basically everything that was built and that had some kind of financial success or funding success, seed grant success on Starknet was built on the last year. Uh, and uh, and in general, from people that didn't have any big previous experience, first-time entrepreneurs, in general 20 something, meaning young people after the studies, because Starknet, there is a cost of opportunity for people that have a lot of these experiences to go to Starknet, because you have to learn everything has to be done, everything has to be rebuilt. So people that have a career well established in other worlds will not take this opportunity to go all in on something that seems to be risky. So that's why you have us, young people, people that are starting their career. You have a big opportunity for us, and some took it, and I think now is the easiest time to take it, considering that Starknet is now more mature and have a lot of seed grants program that I'm sure you've been like exposed. Someone tell you about it before me. I don't have so much information, so I guess you can go see the people from the foundation after this talk. But basically, I'm saying all that. So why am I saying all that? I'm saying all that to give you perspective on what's possible to build on Starknet with a small experience without being a CHAD EVM developer. A lot of people started really from scratch on Starknet, and most of the big application of Starknet didn't have any businesses 1 year ago or 2 years ago. Didn't were first-time entrepreneurs 1 year ago or 2 years ago, and now are really succeeding well. Have seed grants from the foundation, working with revenue like us. But that's really, to me, an opportunity for young developers to take, because this window of opportunity can be tight. As I said, crypto go fast, and I don't think this opportunity 1 year from now will be here anymore, or it will be really more difficult to get into it. So now, what to do? Basically, I'm presenting you all the perspective and all the things that have been done on Starknet, and the career perspective that you can have on Starknet as a developer. But you can by seeing all that, you can freeze and say, okay, but what do I do now? So again, to me on Starknet, you have 3 things that describes the opportunity for you as a 42 students or developer. First, a promising tech with a lot of assumption and thesis around how Web3 should be used. So ZK is a thesis on a promising tech. Account abstraction is another one. So that will be the first good thing that Starknet has, and why is it an opportunity. You have fundings for all project level. So I'm not an expert on that, but just in the last week, the Starknet Foundation announced a bunch of seed programs for small businesses to have 25K to start the businesses, and then middle businesses, and then advanced businesses up to 1 billion in order to have yes, I'm not sure it's me. No, it's not me. Funding, I was stressing a bit, like, okay, is it me? Is it not me? But I guess it wasn't. So yeah, you have all the funding. Is it me? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I can conclude, but basically you have all these opportunities, and now the only thing that you have to do is getting started. And here's a bunch of ideas. So one idea that I have is the decentralized Celsius Nexo, taking advantage of account abstraction, smart contract wallets, and habit tracker apps, with especially focusing on health, counting calories, tracking workouts, etc., using NFTs and gamify experience. You have also other ideas on alliance.xyz/ideas if you want, and that is all for me. I have some pressures from the organization to stop fast. Okay, any questions? Okay, my contact will be on the Telegram. If you guys have any questions, I think it's too short to take some question early, but my contact will be on the Telegram, and you can send me questions if you have on Telegram. Thank you, guys. See you.
Cool. I've connected my laptop. Does it work? No, not yet. So, how are you guys doing? Feeling good? A lot of interesting things happening, and thanks to Ben showing what you can build on Starknet and sharing his experience so far. There are a lot of wonderful stories, success stories as well. So yeah, I'm not sure if you guys are coming to ETCC, but we're doing a Starknet CC. It's a full day event, and it's a bunch of Starknet folks there. And if you want to talk to any project or be interested in creating a project or maybe join a team or do something, it's a really good place to join. I think last year we did the Starknet CC in Paris, and for me it was amazing experience. And yeah. Let's see. 2 minutes? Okay, so I don't know any jokes, but maybe if you have any questions so far regarding the previous session. Was it okay? So I can do it without presentation, but for you it might be a bit difficult. I think I rehearsed this by heart, but usually this session is going to be so we're doing deep dive, but I've simplified it a bit. There are more topics in the deep dive session, and if you want to check out the full recording or the full session, I've included a YouTube link there. And once we get the presentation up on the screen, you'll be able to scan the presentation, and then you'll have access to the full recording. Cool. So, anyone knows any joke? No? I just know a cybersecurity one. Do you guys know what's Forrest Gump password by any chance? What? Yeah, it's 1 Forest 1. No? So it's 1, the number 1, Forest 1. That's his password. Run, Forest, run. It's just anyway. I'm really terrible at jokes, so I tried my best. Cool. This is not my slide yet. Do I have to do something on my end? Okay. Okie dokie. So, just to fill up the gap, Ben mentioned some of the initiatives from the foundation, the programs that we're doing. We are having several grants available. We have the Builders Grant. I see my presentation coming up, so I'll switch back quickly. So we have the Builders Grant, we have the Seed Program, We have proposal program, and I think we have several others. So if you're interested, maybe in the last session I could talk about them. And if you find, like you're developing an application or proof of concept, then I can help you, guide you. Okay, we're good to go. You guys can scan that QR code. Is it possible to just have the presentation or no? I mean, it's okay like this as well, but yeah, perfect. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to scan this. Otherwise, it will be shared in the, I'll be here at the laptop, it's okay. No, I don't need it. It's gonna be shared in the Luma or the group chat that we have, and you'll have access to it as well. So let's get into it. So we are here, we are at the deep dive. We still have 2 more sessions left to go. The following sessions are Cairo and Starknet. They're a practical session. I've seen some of you already brought your laptops, that's good. But for the next 2 sessions, having laptops is really helpful because we're doing code practices and building smart contracts. So bring your laptops and you can follow along. Now, the session topics for today, I mentioned that this was simplified a little bit. We'll talk about the transactions, the different type of transactions that we have on Starknet. So we start with a little bit of theory, and then we'll get into the more practical aspect, like showcasing the ecosystem. So we'll do transactions, we'll see the finality, and then we'll explore the ecosystem. And finally, I'll provide you with some resources for tomorrow and for the day after, and to get started with your developer experience on Starknet. Again, it's a simplified version. So on the full version, we talk about data availability, proof recursion, and full nodes. But if you want to watch the full version of this presentation, I've included the recording of our session. It was recorded, I think, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and it's quite fresh. Okay, without further ado, let's get into it. Transactions. So this is where we left off yesterday. So you remember this smart wallet that you have. You're initiating a transaction. This transaction goes to the sequencer, to the mempool, and then this transaction is being executed in the Cairo VM, right? Finally, once the transaction has been executed, the trace is generated, and that trace is being sent to the prover, to the shared prover, Sharp. Remember that Sharp is being used by StarkX as well, and Starknet, so that's why it's shared prover. And StarkX is being powered, so it's a scaling engine that powers projects like ImmutableX, DYDX, all of these. And finally, Sharp generates the validity proof, and that validity proof is sent to the verifier on L1 on Ethereum, which is a Solidity smart contract. You can even look at it if you want to. I think that's a link, so you can click on it and see the actual contract. And once the validity proof is verified and valid, Ethereum says everything is good, and you also get back the result from that execution. Now, let's see how a transaction lifecycle goes. So we have the smartphone with your wallet. You sign a transaction, and that transaction arrives in the mempool. Now, once it arrives in the mempool, the transaction status can have either received. So when it received in the mempool, the sequencer is aware of the transaction, and the status will be changed to received. If something happened with the communication between your phone and the sequencer, right? Like maybe your internet died or whatever, is just going to be ignored. And nothing happens, so it won't be picked up by the sequencer. So transaction arrives in the mempool. If the sequencer sees it, it will change it to received. Then what happens is basically we're validating the signature here. So we need to make sure that what you're sending it's actually has the correct signature from your account. And if the signature is invalid, the transaction will change to rejected, right? So the transaction will be rejected, and that stops there. If the signature is valid, the transaction will be unchanged, meaning it will be still received, and will continue to the next step. The next step is basically executing the transaction in the Cairo VM. And here you can have two types of transaction type or status. So the first one is reverted, which means that something in the execution of the code happened, like maybe an assert failed, or maybe you're out of gas. You didn't provide enough gas for the whole execution of the program. And what happens is that your transaction status will be changed to reverted. Although if you remember from the last session, the sequencer is still being rewarded because we are able to gracefully handle this type of transactions because of Sierra, the safe intermediate representation. Okay, now let's say that the execution is correct, everything is fine. The status changes to accepted on L2, right? So this is the finality on Starknet. It takes about roughly 3 seconds. Now, this trace that's being generated from its execution, it's sent to sharp, to the prover, and then the validity proof is sent to the verifier. Once the verifier says that this validity proof is correct, then your transaction status changes to accepted on L1, which means that we finally have finality on layer 1. Finality means that your transaction is settled, and it cannot be reverted, changed, or anything like this. So far, so good? Again, feel free to raise your hands if you have any questions. Now, transaction types. We have the declare one, which we seen yesterday, that basically allows you to declare new code on Starknet. We use for contract classes. Again, contract classes are just a piece of code or logic without any storage, and it lives on Starknet. Then you have invoke, which basically allows you to execute write functions. So if you change the state of the contract, you have to invoke, because basically you have to pay gas to change the state of a contract. And then you have deploy account, which allows you to deploy account contracts on Starknet. All transactions modified the global state, hence gas fees. So which means that if I need to change my, let's say, NFT ERC20 token, so smart contract, and I have to change something in my storage, I have to update the storage, which means that I'm writing a new variable to it, and I have to pay gas for it. So all transactions that modify the global state of my contract, you'll have to pay the gas fees. And then read-only functions, we also have this. These basically, they don't change the state of the contract. You're just querying for the result. So if, for example, I want to retrieve the name of the token, it's just querying the result. I'm not changing, I'm not modifying the state of the contract. So that doesn't need gas. That's why we call it read-only function. And no deploy transaction. So again, we just have the declare, invoke, and the deploy account, which basically works with the universal deployer that we talked about. We have a different smart contract that deploys all the contracts for us. Now, we have a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem. Let's say that you want to create, like, you're a first user to Starknet, right? And you need to create a smart wallet. You have to deploy this account contract, but you have to pay gas for it, right? So you have to deploy the account contract, you have to pay gas for it, but you don't have a smart wallet yet. So what happens? It's kind of like an issue. So how do we manage to deploy an account contract if you don't have an account contract to pay the gas fees? That's why, hence the chicken and egg problem. So to do this, we actually have this method, counterfactual deployment. And how this works is actually the client is able to pre-calculate the address for you. because it knows the inputs of the function or the smart contract, and it's able to calculate this address. So what we're doing is that the address is being pre-calculated in advance. You're sending funds to this, so you can use a faucet or some on-ramping method. You can send funds to this address. And then finally, you can use the deploy account function that will be able to retrieve the necessary gas fees to deploy your account. So this is how it's actually working. I'm actually, so the sequencer deducts the gas fees from that address. So once the funds arrive, you're deploying the account on Starknet, and once that deploy function is invoked, then the gas fees are retrieved from it. Okay? Let's actually do an example. So I mentioned it's going to be a bit more practical, so I'll try to do this. If you haven't installed a wallet before, let's try to do that. So I'm going to create a new guest here. I'm going to call it 42 blockchain. Is it big enough? Okay, and for wallets, let's say you can pick either Argent or Bravos, right? So I'll pick Bravos. You'll go to download, it's pretty straightforward. I'll have Brave, I add to Brave, yes. And maybe I'm not doing good practices here because I have to create a wallet and I have to remember my seed phrase, which I won't remember now. But for you, when you're doing this, make sure to have a good password and write down the seed phrase. It's a very weak password. Okay. Now, yes, you have to look at this and then you have to save it, and sure, but don't do this. Like, make sure to have this seed phrase safely stored and don't show it to anyone. Okay, now I have my account, right? I mentioned that we created the account, but this basically doesn't exist on Starknet yet, and I can prove that. I can go to a block explorer like Voyager. And let's try to pass this in to see if I actually got something. Nothing. So no results found. So it means that this account is not deployed yet. So if we go back to our presentation, we're here, like on the first step, right? My client was managed to pre-calculate my address because I have my address here, but it's not deployed yet. So what we need to do now is to send some funds. And to do that, I'll switch to testnet. So we'll go to Sepolia, proceed. And I'll copy my address. And we have a faucet called Starknet faucet.versal app. And then here you can just pass in your address. You can request the Stark token. I make sure that I'm not a bot, hopefully. And I press send. Now we'll wait a bit until the funds are sent to my account. I'm gonna take a few seconds. And similar thing you can do with Argent Browser, so it's no different. Now let's examine a little bit so this is the transaction that sent me some funds from the faucet. And here you can see the status that I talked to. So this is the not received. This means that it hasn't arrived to the sequencer, to the mempool, right? So you get this status. Now, once it arrives to the sequencer, it changes the status to received. Now we have a pending. So the pending, I'll talk a little bit in detail in a bit, but basically it's when the block is being created and it's waiting for all the transactions to come in. And you have this accepted on L2. So this is the finality on Starknet. It's about roughly 3 seconds. And finally, we have the finality on layer 1, which I think it takes several hours for that. So these are the changes in the transaction status. Now, let me switch back to my wallet. Okay, we see that we have some Stark tokens, and now we have the funds in the address. Now we'll try to deploy it. So for wallets, you basically, you can either send the funds to someone, and that will manually, automatically will deploy your wallet, or I can manually deploy it from the client itself. So in case you're using Argent, or sorry, Bravos, you go to your account, you click on this tool, and we have set up your account on-chain. And I'm clicking that, and I'm deploying my account. And this is just one transaction, one time that you're doing it. You're not deploying all the time. Once you deploy it, it lives on the block explorer. Okay, I managed to deploy my account. Let's see actually the transaction. I can go here. And again, you see that the status of the transaction, we have the not received, received, pending, and accepted on L2. And then we see the transaction type is a deploy account. So it's a different transaction type. It's not invoke. Okay, now let's see if my actual address can be found on Sepolia, on the block explorer. I'm going to switch to Sepolia. I'm going to pass in the address. And voila, we already have it there. So let's go here to see what it is. So it's my contract. And inside here, you have the read and the write. These are the read functions. And you can see that there are some functions that are followed from the SNP 6 implementation. So you have all the functions that from the SNP 6. And this is our account contract that will hold our assets. And now I can interact it with my Bravos wallet. My Bravos wallet is the signer, and I have a account contract on Starknet. So roughly this is hands-on experience on how to create a wallet. Similar fashion with Argent. So it's you install it, and then you request funds, you deploy it, and then you're able to use it. You'll probably need one at the end of the session if you want to claim the SPOC. It's Starknet proof of kudos, and it's a nice NFT that you can collect. Okay. Any questions so far? Yeah, go. You can go. You can do rock, paper, scissors if you want to. Okay. So this one, I deployed it on Sepolia, but if you want, we can deploy it on mainnet, but then you have to use real funds. Yeah. So for Argent, I think if you do a transaction, we'll automatically deploy your contract, so you don't have to take care of it. But they also have it in their client. I think both of them have it like to manually deploy the contract itself. But to ease the UX, they automatically deploy it once you initiate a transaction. But remember, you need some gas, because you basically change the state of the whole contract, and you have to pay the gas fees. Any other questions? Okay, let's switch to our presentation. I'm going to close these. So if you want to use the testnet, you can access the Starknet faucet, and you can request funds from it. Okay. Now, to recap the transaction, we have 3 different types of transaction. It's the declare, that allows you to declare your contract class. Is the invoke, which basically changes the state of the contract, where you have to pay the gas. And the deploy account, which allows you to deploy the smart contracts. Transaction lifecycle, we've seen that there are 4 types of transaction lifecycles. The first one is received, when it's recognized by the sequencer, but doesn't do anything yet. Then the second type is accepted on L2, which means that it goes through whole the process of validating the signature, executes it in the Cairo VM, and then you're going to receive it as accepted on L2. The third type of transaction is accepted on L1. That's when the layer 1 says that the validity proof is cool, and you reach settlement on layer 1. And finally, you have the rejected and reverted. That means that something along the way, either your signature validation is not correct, or that means it's going to be rejected. And if your Cairo execution code or the execution of the program is invalid, like you have an assert and something happens or fails, then it's going to be reverted. And finally, account contracts, we approach the counterfactual deployment method that we've seen in the previous slide. Okay, now how are we doing on time regarding the next speaker? Okay, cool. I have to check because we have 3 more topics, so I'll do the transaction finality now. Now, just to recap here, as we've seen on Ethereum, it roughly takes 6 minutes to reach finality. On Starknet, you have about 2 hours, and the layer 2 finality on Starknet is 3 seconds. And on optimistic rollups, it's about 1 week. So what this means is that if you want to withdraw your assets from optimistic rollups, it's going to take 1 week to receive those funds. Now, let's see how this finality is being received. So we have the same diagram that we had before. Now you may be, what we have in addition is that we have the 5th step, which is the data availability data that's being sent to layer 1. That's basically the state difference between the previous state and the new state. So in these 2 states, a bunch of transactions happen, and we send this state diff to layer 1, and you'll be able to reconstruct the whole Starknet block. So we have our smartphone, we sign the transaction reaches the mempool. Once the sequencer picks it up, it executes it in the Cairo VM, it generates the trace, sends to prover, to the sharp prover, and then the validity proof is sent to the verifier. Only after the validity proof is correct, the data availability data is sent to the blob, and it's being stored. Now, as I mentioned, the layer 2 finality is roughly 3 seconds. And then once the layer 2 finality, like the proof is approved, then it will roughly take 2 hours on this. So just to recap here, L2 finality takes 3 seconds. You have to trust Starkware that everything runs correctly on the sequencer. There are plans to decentralize the sequencer, and this will change. It will, I think, they're already working on this progress, so we're likely to see more news on the decentralization of the sequencer. And then the layer 2 is being, so this finality is used by most of the applications that we have. Now, regarding the layer 1 finality, it's trustless because it's arise on Ethereum, and then all the node operators are picking it up. You don't depend on an entity. It's decentralized. And this is mostly used by the bridges, like the bridges between Starknet and Ethereum. The mempool, I know like we received the question last day. So technically, we don't have a real mempool. So we have kind of like a mempool. The reason why we don't have a mempool is that we don't have a fee market yet. Which means that all transactions are executed in the same order they arrive. So it's FIFO, first in, first out. And you cannot pay more to jump the queue. So if you want to, pay more gas fees, doesn't changes anything, right? But this will change. This will change. I think by the end of this year, we plan to release Volition, which will introduce a fee market for Starknet. And then the real mempool will exist. On Starknet, is also known as the batcher. The batcher is because we batch the transactions together. So the sequencer has a lot of roles, mainly the Starknet OS. It picks up the transaction, it batches together, it sends it for execution, it generates the new block. So the Starknet OS has a lot of roles. And real mempool will be created for P2P network. We'll see that by the end of this year. And it's part, as I mentioned, it's part of the decentralization roadmap. So now regarding the pending block that I showed in the transaction lifecycle, the reason why we have a pending block is that we are creating, let's say we're creating a block, right? And in this block, we want to batch transactions together. So what happens is that I'm sending a transaction, and this arrives to the sequencer. It gets added to the block, and it's being changed. So the transaction is added to the pending block, right? And this is being executed in the Cairo VM, and then the transaction that you sent is going to be changed to accepted on L2 while the block is pending. Now, a new transaction arrives to the sequencer. This is also added to the pending block, and the same process repeats. It's being executed in the Cairo VM, and then the transaction status for this TX2 is being changed to accepted on L2 if everything works correctly. If there's assertion or something is wrong with the code or the execution, it has a different status. So this repeats until we are creating the block. And how do we create this block is that we have a maximum size of 40 million Cairo steps. So each transaction has a certain number of Cairo steps. And then we wait until this maximum size of 40 million Cairo steps is reached. Each transaction can have roughly 4 million Cairo steps, but how to emphasize this 4 million Cairo steps? So I'm not sure if you heard about the game Influence, but they basically are able to simulate orbital mechanics in their transactions. So it's quite complex, and you can do a lot of things with 4 million Cairo steps. And finally, roughly it takes about, actually it should be 6 minutes here, not 3 minutes. So this changed recently to from 3 minutes to 6 minutes. So roughly like a block is created every 6 minutes, right? So once this limit is reached, we create the block and then we process further. Okay, so again, let's see the timeline for these events. Sequencer receives transactions at time 0. Then transaction executed, the transactions are being executed. So this happens right before the block being, because the block creation takes about 6 minutes, but we're able to execute a transaction and then change your transaction type to L2, like accepted on L2. Then we have the block created at 6 minutes. And then finally, we have the accepted on layer 1 as the final status, where we reach finality with Ethereum. So to summarize the transaction finality, they're executed in the order they arrive, so first in, first out. New transactions arrive, they get into the pending block, and then this pending block is being constructed. We wait to gather enough transactions, and once we reach those limits, we close the block, and then we generate it, we create it, and we generate the proof out of it, we send it to the sharp, and you remember all those steps. Yeah, transactions are executed right away, so you don't have to wait for the block to be closed. That's how we're doing it. We process the transactions in roughly 3 seconds, and they are included in the block while being constructed. Layer 2 finality happens before block being finalized, and then the block is being created every 6 minutes. And the block can hold up to 40 million Cairo steps, so these are a lot of computation power that you can do. And then each transaction can hold 4 million Cairo steps. again, feel free to try to reach those limits. It's quite a lot of computation happening, but the more Cairo steps that you have, the more gas you're using. But at this point on Starknet, it's quite cheap to work with. I think every transaction is under 1 cent, and this is all because of the Denkun upgrade. We're having the lowest fees across the layer 2s. Okay. My next topic is about the Starknet ecosystem. How are we doing on time? Do we have only Dust or? Oh, yeah. I'll take a few questions and. Right. So this one. So we have the transaction layer 2 finality. So basically, I think all layer 2s are adopting this method. What happens is that we're just opening a block, like we're creating a block, and then in this block we are just putting all the transactions one after the other. But we are able to execute this without closing the block. So what will happen is that we're executing these transactions, we're generating the execution, and then that's being stored until the block is closed. So this is how it works. I can send you more details about this, but yeah, so we are just putting all the transactions in the block. We're able to execute them with the Cairo VM, and you don't have to wait for the block to be closed. Yes, I think so, yes. So that allows us to do this, but in terms of when we decentralize the whole thing, it's gonna be different. So having a single sequencer allows us to do this, but I think this will change during the decentralization phase. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, then I'll let only Dust present.
Thanks, man. I think I have this one.
We have to.
Take this one. Nice. Thanks, man. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex from Only Dust, and I'm here to discuss with you how you can boost your developer career through open source contributions. So, Robert, sorry, it will be exactly the same speech I gave in Berlin last week. So it will be a bit boring for you, but for the rest of you guys, I hope it will be interesting. So very short presentation, 10 minutes. The goals are the following: explaining to you what Only Dust is, what the OD hack is. Basically, it's the hackathon we're organizing on a monthly basis, why you should participate, and a few insights from past editions. So first, what's Only Dust? The question I like to ask now is, who in the room knows Only Dust? Wow, that's a lot of people. That's cool. I think that's the first time I have that many people in the room knowing Only Dust, so that's very cool. For those who don't know Only Dust is a platform allowing developers to contribute to open source projects and get rewarded for it. So basically, you can try your skills, your developing skills, or try more challenging issues to solve and get rewarded for it. So it's a platform you can check online. It's free on onlydust.com. Basically, you have everything on the platform, all the projects from 5 different ecosystems that you can sort by ecosystems or technologies. And then you have all the information you need if you want to get in touch with the project lead and start contributing to an open source project.
That's a few figures for Only Dust, very, very good figures. The two figures here that I like the most are, so first we have more than 200 projects. So that means that as an open source contributor, you have a lot of opportunities to participate. And second, we distribute around 500K in grants monthly. So that's a lot of reward, and you could be part of this. How you could be part of this? Perfect transition. The OD Hack. So OD Hack is basically the hackathon we are organizing on a monthly basis. It's a 10-day hackathon. And we have three main goals. So the first one is, of course, to like connect developers with projects according to the skills you have, according to the level you have, according to a lot of different things, but that's the first goal. Second is to reward contributors for their work. So we give you money in exchange of the contribution you are doing, if they are, if the PR is merged, obviously. And third, it's more like the long-term objective of the OD Hack is to launch careers. So on our end, the goal is not to have like a lot of people contributing to open source and receiving money for it. The goal is really for you to grow with the ecosystem, connect with people, connect with projects, and maybe one day start your own project on the ecosystem you are working with. So that's the three goals. So basically, it's exactly what Only Dust does every day, but we create the perfect environment for you to join. So basically, that's the way it works. So first, we curate projects. Then we work closely with the project lead so that they can have like good first issues for all levels. And then we just like assign issues to the contributors. We have the 10 days hackathon, and then we reward the contributors at the end of the 10 days. Why you should participate? So first, figures. I already talked about figures, but that's the figures of the OD Hack. For now, we did 3 editions of the OD Hack. Again, I have like preferred figures. On this slide, of course, the grant distributed, because it's always cool to see that in 3 editions, we distributed 250K grants, so that's a lot. And we have like a lot of participants and projects. I think in 3 editions, we saw around like 50 projects participating, even more than that. You also have like, so you can either participate as a contributor. So if you want to start and test your skills, you can start as a contributor and join the OD Hack to work on a specific project. It will help you develop your skills, build your network, like know more people in the ecosystem, and get rewarded, of course. But you can also participate as a projects. So if you are like a bit more, a bit deeper in your developer journey, and you have an open source project that you maintain yourself and you need developers, you can also come to us and say, okay, we need more developers. Can we participate in the OD Hack? And then you have like, of course, help from developers to move forward maybe more quickly with your project. So that's another way to see the OD Hack. That's the list of the, so basically I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are closing the 4th edition of the OD Hack today, after 10 days of work, and that was the projects who are participating. So as you can see, we have a lot of different projects from a lot of different ecosystems. A lot are from Starknet, as you can see, and a lot of different languages. So that means that we have really a lot of different skills that you can test as a developer, as an open source contributor during the OD Hack. That's the most important slide for me. Basically, if you want to learn more about it, if you want to maybe see how it went with the 4th edition that we just like ended today, scan this QR code. Basically, we are using the same Telegram group every month where we are discussing with all the contributors, where we are explaining the deadlines, all the guidelines, everything. So feel free to join the group. Feel free to send a message in the group to say, hi, we are from 42, Paris. That's cool as well. But yeah, that's if you want to participate in the next one. It will happen in 3 weeks. We are currently working on finding the right projects for the 5th edition of the OD Hack. That's if you want, if you don't know OnlyDust yet. So basically, if you want the rewards, you need to sign up your GitHub account. It takes less than 5 minutes, but it's very important because if you don't do that, we cannot send you the reward. So if you want to participate, make sure to sign up. I know it's only 10 minutes, so I'm going quick. Insight from past editions. So of course, Starkwares, Nethermind, Starknet were deeply involved in the past editions, but we have also other ecosystems that are here. So Rust, Lambda class, a lot of very cool projects. The community is also very strong. We are organizing meetup all around the world. So you have a few tweets that are showing engagement from the community to the meetup we're organizing. And then, last but not least, if you feel like you are maybe too early for you to join the Telegram group and participate to the next OD Hack, you can just follow us on Twitter and have the latest news on what we are doing. And next time, when you feel ready, you can join the Telegram group and contribute as an open source contributor. And that's it for me. Do you have any questions? Cool. Means that was clear, I guess. So then I will give back the mic. What should I do? I just leave the stage?
Thank you very much, Alex. Even though I listened to this second time, it's always an enjoyable talk, especially seeing such a big community around OnlyDust and a lot of success stories coming out of it. So, thank you again. Let's switch back to my presentation. Okay. So, next up is exploring the ecosystem. So, no more theory, yay. It's quite like, the Starknet stack is quite decentralized. So there are a lot of open source projects, and we've seen also OnlyDust being an open source project and community. And this is just a sneak peek on what the Starknet stack looks like. There are many more things to be added here. Unfortunately, an image like this is not enough. Like, you have to put a lot of things. So on the type of sequencers, we have Starkware developing sequencers, we have Lambda class, and we have Madara, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. In terms of prover, we have, again, Starkware, so we have the Stone prover, we have Lambda, I think it's called Platinum prover, and we have Sandstorm. Full nodes, we have Voyager, we have Juno, and so on. And you get the picture. So we have the API services, we have Blast API, Alchemy, Infura. Type of wallets, we have Argent, Bravos, and MetaMask. I think it's called Snip5 or something like that, or Snap5. I don't know exactly. I haven't used it. Yeah, so in essence, the focus on the Starknet stack is to have a decentralized stack and an open source community, and we really believe in this. Now to get, again, a sneak peek on what's currently happening. Again, this image, I think, has to be updated. Hasn't been updated for quite a bit because it was difficult to keep adding stuff to it. But we have a lot of things happening in our community in terms of smart wallet tools, architecture tools, infrastructure, gaming, and social. So I do invite you all to explore the ecosystem, see what you like. It's either on the DeFi side or maybe on the gaming side. Just try it out, see for yourself. Cool. So now I'm going to go through a few projects that are very interesting on Starknet. So the first one, we have Herodotus. They are actually doing storage proofs. So storage proofs allows you to prove that you have an asset on a different layer, so maybe on Ethereum or somewhere else. And you don't need to actually move these assets, so you can just prove that you have this available. They are working on other things as well. So they have Turbo, which is a smart contract interface for storage proof APIs. And finally, it was named Cairo Verifier before, but now it's called Integrity. It's basically a Cairo Verifier in the new syntax on Starknet, and it basically allows you to it's a Cairo code that allows you to do proof verification. It's also deployed on Starknet, so if you have a proof, you can submit this proof to the smart contract, and you can verify this as well. I've included some of the documentation here if you're interested in storage proofs and more. Then we talked about Kakarot, which is the ZK EVM Type 3 on Starknet. It's basically a bytecode interpreter from EVM to Cairo VM. It allows you to deploy Solidity code or Solidity smart contracts to Starknet without even knowing Cairo. 100% EVM opcode supported, and 8 of 9 EVM precompiles supported. So if you're interested in Kakarot as well, feel free to access the resources added here. Madara, it's an open source framework, which basically allows you to spin up your own app chain. It's using Substrate as a framework, and it's able to amplify the capabilities of Cairo VM, which means that you can create your own app chain with your own specific settings in terms of block timestamp or different consensus mechanism or different signature or whatever you want to. So it's basically highly customizable, and actually I can even showcase it. And not showcase it, but just go through their documentation. So this is Madara. You can read more about what you're doing here. But basically, where is it? They had a nice chart. Architecture, this one. So I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is basically how the Madara architecture looks like. You can choose which VM to use. You can either go with Cairo VM or Kakarot ZK VM. In terms of data availability layer, you can choose between Celestia, Avail, or Ethereum. And you can also choose the settlement layer. Like you can choose to settle directly to Ethereum, or if you want to create a layer 3, you can settle on Starknet in this case, or any other sovereign light client. In terms of prover, you can use the ones that we have, the Stone prover, or which is developed by Starkware, and then the Platinum prover, which is developed by Lambda class. You can access this in their documentation, and if you go to Keep Starknet Strange, Madara, you can have access to or hello. So I don't know. 2, 1, 2. It's on and off. So hub repo, and if you want this, there's a lot. Spin up your own. Back. Basically, an open source. It allows you to do. They have SDKs or dataset SDK. Okay, perfect. And recently they announced the Giza agent, which is basically a modular extendable framework to integrate decentralized ML. And you can explore the latest resources that they have. So if you're interested in creating some MNIST classification or things like this, let me grab the AI part. So this is Giza. You go to Orion, and this is all their documentation how to get started with ZK-ML. And in case you're interested in doing some tutorials, you have here provable multiple linear regression and MNIST classification with Orion. And basically, it goes step by step on how to do this. So you're doing the model on your local machine, you're training it, and then you can have it written in Cairo to be able to detect or classify the certain thing that you're doing. Finally, it's Dojo, my preferred subject. Allows you to create provable, not provable, it's basically a provable game engine, which is built with Cairo. It has all sorts of tools, such as Sozo, Katana. Sozo, it's a tool that allows you to deploy and migrate your contracts. Katana, it's a local DevNet, but soon it's going to be turned into a sequencer itself, so it's going to be something like Madara as well. And they have other tools that will help you to create these on-chain games and autonomous worlds. It's based on the ECS game pattern, which is Entity Component System. It's quite a new architecture type of pattern.